Okay, so this exercise number 1 is about to write a program that reads 10 real numbers from the user using an array list, and then calculate and display the total and the average of these numbers, then ask the user to enter a number and display whether the number can be found in the array list or not. So that's pretty much a very simple, straightforward exercise. So we're going to declare an array list. So I always use the control space so I can get the importing to be done by NetBeans. But notice these, you see this less than, greater than, and e. This is a generic class. A generic class means it works with a data type that you can give it to. If you don't give it to, what is going to be the result? Is it going to be a compilation error? No, it will use object. Object is going to be the class, the object, the data type that is going to be used for that class. And then if I'm specifying a specific data type, then, well, it's going to be the data type that I'd like to. Now, if I'd like to have some real numbers, so I'm going to use double. Double the capital D, not the lowercase d, because generics do not work with primitive data types. They work with class data types. And double is a class. I just need to call it, let's say, list equal new array list. Now, when I use this new array list, see, this is the kind of representation that I got by NetBeans, and then see, it just puts the less than, greater than. What I can do is also I can do this, which is basically the same thing. Well, so this is some redundancy that you don't have to do, but this is something possible. But anyways, just if you remove it, it's going to be okay as well. But if you don't, you remove it completely, that's a different thing that happens. This is now becoming an object again. So we'll keep it like this or like this. So when you have an array list of double, then you use the constructor array list of double with, then you can whatever you use into the arguments. But if you don't, that's possible. When you don't put anything, it means it's the same data type that you're using. Now, there's something I'd like to talk about is this. You see, there are 3 constructors. This one constructs an empty list with an initial capacity of 10. What does this mean? Now, this array list has an array in the back. We don't see it because the class is going to manage it. But that array, when you don't initialize it, we don't specify a size, it's going to be, by default, it's going to be 10. This is what this says, because we use the no arguments constructor. If you want it to be something else than 10, well, there's this one here. For example, why would it be something less than 10? Because now imagine I know that I need to insert 200 values. Now, if the capacity initially is 10, it's going to keep increasing. Okay, 10, maybe another 10, maybe another 10, maybe another 10. So the fact that it increases, it creates a new, remember yesterday, it creates a new array, copy the old one, then the new one, and then get the new values. Now, it's going to take a lot of time if I just, okay, create a new one, copy, and then put the new values. So there's going to be a lot of action that is really not needed. If you know how many you're going to have, and it's more than 10, then it's better that you use this constructor and specify, okay, I'm going to initialize 200, so the array is already 200. And then you just need to put your data. If you increase, it's going to increase again, no problems. But at least you just save the computer some time to just doing some things for nothing. So that's the idea behind that. And then this one, I'm not going to be talking about it too much, but the main idea is if I would like to add many values at the same time. There's some kind of a way, but we're not going to be looking into that. So for our case, 10 is enough. So the constructor that the no argument constructor is always going to give us 10. So that's what we want actually, because the question says 10 real numbers. So we're covered. Now I need to have the user give me those numbers, so I'm going to use the scanner, and then kb equal new scanner system.in. Then let's make a loop to ask the user to enter those numbers. Now it's going to be 10, okay fine, but I would like to use list.size. Is that okay? It's the same thing, right? No. Even though we initialized it and the constructor says that it's going to initialize with a size of 10, this size gives me how many actual values that I have put. Now the capacity is 10, but the values, how many values did I put so far? Well, for now I didn't put anything, so it's going to be 0. So I cannot use this size like the idea of the capacity that is here. The capacity is the array that is hidden to us. We don't use it, we don't see it. But the size is the elements that we put inside of the array. So if we do something like this, this loop will is never going to be executed. Why? Because this is going to be 0. Why 0? Well, this is the list. I initialized it. Initially the size of the array is 10, but how many values did I put in? None. So that's why this is going to count how many values did I put in, but I did not put any numbers in the list, so it's going to be 0. So I don't need to do this. Well, what should I do? Well, put the 10, because we would like to read 10 numbers. So I'm going to put 10. From 0 to 10. Yes?
If I want to put like an array
Well, then it's not what you need to do. I don't know. Let's see. Do we have something like get capacity? Can we get the capacity that we just initialized? Well, there's no way to get that, as you can see. All what we can have is get index of, last index of, remove, set, size, and then add all, clear, contains, ensure, capacity for each, is empty, iterator, list iterator, same thing, remove, replace. There's nothing that tells us that I can have like an array.length that I can use, because this is not the purpose of this list to give me what's internally I have, because I don't care about what's internally, how is it saved and everything. I just would like to be able to add, to remove, to insert in the middle. It's just going to take care of this. So I don't have this information. So I'm just going to use this to be 10.
So I can only use set number, right?
Yes, in this case, yes. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to ask the user to enter all these at once. So I'm going to say, please enter 10 numbers. And make it print and not print line. And then I'm going to read those and add them to the list. So I'm going to add, and inside this I'm going to use kb.next double, because I would like to read some double values. And this loop here is going to read a number from the user and add it to the list. Once I'm done, I just would like to see the list, so I'm just going to display it by doing something like, okay, the list is, the values are, and then plus the list. So let's see that. Oh, that's nice. So please enter 10 numbers. That's what I'm seeing. That I'm seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 10. Press enter. The values are, and all these values are stored as double, because I'm reading doubles and I'm adding them to the list that is a list of doubles. Okay, so far so good. Now, well, I would like to calculate and display the total and the average of these numbers. Now, if I'd like to calculate the total and average of these numbers, well, it might make sense now, instead of just adding them directly, to declare a variable and add the value given by the user to that variable, and then so I can just add it to some kind of a sum. So I'm going to have a sum that is going to be 0, and then every time I read something from the user, I'm going to add it to the sum, and this way I have at the end of this loop the sum. And if I have the sum, I can have the average as well. So now I have the sum. So maybe I can display the, what is it say, the, I can display the total and average of these numbers. Okay, so the total is, and it's going to be just the sum, and maybe the average is, which is sum divided by 10, and I'm done. Is there anything else? Yeah.
Sum, if it's an int, you remember.
Well, sum is a double because all the values that I'm put inside it is double. So even if I divide by an int, it's fine because double divided by int is going to be double. So let's see. So normally the average is going to be the middle, but it's going to be 5.5. So that's what I'm expecting. The middle of this is between 5 and 6. That's where the middle of these, like 5 value to the left, 5 value to the right. That means this is the average. All right. Now the second part of the exercise is that then ask the user to enter a number and display whether the number can be found in the array list or not. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to now put some kind of just some \n because I'd like to have extra space. I'll put it after or before, it doesn't matter. Now I'm just going to say, please enter a number to look for in the list. And again, I'm going to read that number. I don't know. Now what I'm going to do, because I don't want to declare another variable, I'm going to use the sum. Why am I using the sum? Well, I don't need it anymore. I used it, I displayed the value of the sum, I displayed the average. So now from this line I don't need to use sum anymore. I could declare another variable, call it value, and then look for it, but now this is just a place where I'm storing some information. And just to save space, I'm not going to declare a new one. I could have declared something like, say, double number. I could have done something like this, and then I'm going to look for that number by asking a question if in the list contains that number that I'm looking for. Now this is going to be either true or false. If it's contain the number, it's going to return true. So if it returns true, I'm going to say, well, yes, it was found. The number was found in the list. And else, well, the number was not found in the list. But instead of having this number here, I could just remove this and use the sum. And the sum is just a variable that I'm using to store this here. So I'm just avoiding declaring extra variables. It's not really that an improvement, but just I would like it to be having this flexibility of being able to find out that when a variable that I declared, I'm not using it anymore, and I need another variable, I could just use that one. And maybe if the sum now is kind of maybe confusing to you, well, you can just rename it to something that can fit both usages. But at the end, it's the same thing. Now I'm going to run it. I'm going to add those 10 numbers again. And then please enter a number to look for in the list. So I'm going to look for 5.5. While the number was not found in the list, which is great. And then I'm going to do the same because I would like to make sure that it works when I put a number that I find, let's say 9. The number was found in the list, so it's working. Now this is the way that makes sense, but there's another way that I would like to show you. which is using either index of or last index of. Both of them are going to be fine. Whoa, what happened? Yeah. Okay, now index of, if you remember, index of does what? If you give it a number, it's going to return either the index of that number or -1 if it doesn't find it. Well, I'm going to say if this is not -1, or even better, if it's greater than 0, or no, because it might be 0, greater than or equal to 0, then I'm going to say the number was found. If not, that means it's negative. That means the number was not found. Well, I could ask another question. I could have used also different than -1. If it's not -1, that means the number was found. If it's -1, that means it was not found. Both of these are fine. Let me just use maybe -1 because it's much clearer. So if it's not -1, it's found. I'm going to try it again. And then I'm going to put this 5.5, and there's no 5.5, so the number was not found again. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And if I'm looking for 5, the number was found in the list. So I can use contain, index of, last index of, is the same thing. I just wanted to show you something different. But what makes sense is to use contain, because contain is more specific to the fact that to the action that we're looking for. We're looking to find if there's a value in that list. So that's what contains does. And we don't need the position. So it just tells us it exists or does not exist. If we need the position, then index of is what we need to use. But in this case, we don't care about the position. We just would like to know if it exists or not. So that's it.